Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy and my channel's Finding Value. If you guys are looking for undervalued investment opportunities, please click subscribe. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. That helps me out with the algorithms. And leave any comments that you guys have if you have any comments. We're going to go over uranium, technical analysis. We're going to jump right into the technical analysis. And the only thing I'm going to say is this is financial education. It is not advice. You guys are going to have to do your own due diligence. So let's jump right in. I'll give you my opinion. So we're doing uranium in this clip. And here's North Shore Global Uranium. I drew it at the bottom here coming through, and we're getting real close to this bottom. The positive thing that I see is the volumes are declining. That's good, and I'm starting to see a wick on the bottom here. The momentum is slowing down, and we're coming to a support line. Is it time to buy in yet? That's up to you guys. I can't give you advice. But for me, I would wait for the next day, see what it looks like. If you see another kind of day where you've got a wick on the bottom and it wants to end up higher, then I would buy into that strength a little bit. I'd cost average in. But that's up to you. CCJ, you can see that wick on the bottom and it's starting to come back up. I think it's getting, it looks better. It looks like we're about to turn. It looks like the trend line may hold, but we still have a lot of momentum here. There's still some momentum. So even if this were to come up, I think you might see another up day, down day, or something like that next to each other. And you can pick this off if you want. It's up to you guys, and if you want to cost average in, but it doesn't look bad, and we're at the trend line and it's holding. Denison Mines, I don't have too much to say here. It's just meandering sideways. You can try drawing like a channel in here, but it's not good or it's not bad. I just kind of indifferent on it. UU is right at its trend line if you draw it in there, and it's starting to contract. The opening and closing prices are coming to meet each other. You can also see that this is kind of coming to a point here, which means if we see an update tomorrow, might not be too bad to add a little bit in. If we see that strength. If we see weakness, if this starts to break down below this trend line, you might want to wait. Uranium Energy Corp, you draw it like this, it broke to the downside. We do have a kind of reversal candlestick here with the wick at the bottom, and it's starting to come up. Momentum's coming to the upside. I would still wait on buying it, though. I'm being patient. Uranium Royalty Corp, I think it actually ended higher than this. I did this midday, but I think it ended up a little bit more, and it was looking pretty strong. So this line here, where there's a lot of buyers and sellers all back here, it might be holding at the moment. So we've got a nice big reversal day with the wick at the bottom coming on up. Usually that's momentum for the next day to continue higher. And I think that's exactly what it did. So it looks pretty good to me. Next Gen Energy, that's trend line's holding. We got contraction down here. See these little candlesticks? The opening and closing prices are the same. That means the buyers are starting to equal the sellers. We've got a large down day here and a smaller down day here, which means we are slowing that momentum down. We could still break down here. So I'm being patient. I'm watching to see what happens and seeing if we're going to break this trend line here. But it is looking positive. I'm getting more positive on this. Fission, same thing. We've got a nice good wick at the bottom, kind of a reversal day. We may end above this trend line and we might start to trend higher. I want to see what tomorrow brings us. Now, Global Atomic, it's starting to lose its steam. You can see we've got this wedge that formed up here. We got the bearish engulfing, which means, hey, we're going to have a pullback here. We had a wick at the bottom hammered pattern. I was like, ooh, this could go higher. And then the sellers were still there and it sold off. Sellers are still here. I don't see any contraction days. I don't see the turning move yet. So I'm being patient. I'm just waiting. Gobiax Uranium, kind of doing a little back test here, back to the support line. It broke out of this pattern to the upside and then just said, nah, I'm coming back. So we'll probably see it sit here for a little bit. Deep Yellow, it is selling off some. Looks like it's just out of favor, uranium. Maybe too many retail investors are in here. They usually don't have the courage of their convictions, a lot of retail investors. So you break out of this, you come up. We got like this cup and handle pattern that was forming. And we're coming on back down. And I got to see the turn yet. I haven't seen the turning point. So I'm patient. And just for FYI, I did buy in here. I cost average into this thinking that we could break to the upside. Just your FYI for everybody. I bought here, and then I bought in here again too. Bannerman's looking pretty good. If it ended here, this is a bullish engulfing. We've got a small opening and closing price there. It's above its support line, broke out, retest. I like buying these retests, so it doesn't look too bad. I would buy some here if it's a long-term investment hold. Fission has been very volatile over here, and it's just moving sideways. I don't know which direction this thing's going to go, but I'm holding on. Pierpoint's right at its uptrend line. It's playing with it, but the buyers and sellers, they're starting to equal each other out. We have a wick on the bottom from the day before. I think it's probably going to. I think this trend line will hold, but we'll see what tomorrow brings us. I'm curious to see if it holds. Blue Sky's running right into its trend line. Is this a shoulder that has developed, and could we see a potential pullback? Maybe. I would just be a buyer. I bought in here, and it's now basically back to where I bought it, and I'm holding on. I'm not doing anything. Here's Kenalaska Uranium. The uptrend line broke. This could be a shoulder, possibly. Maybe we've got a little bit more downside. You could say that the projected move is this length here, projected kind of downward where it broke out, so it could come down a little bit further. We do have a wick on the bottom here, which usually means we could move on up a little bit. Looks like we've got some support running across through here, which we do. There's a lot of support in here. So it could hold in here. It could. Remember, short-term movements are a lot more difficult to predict than the big long-term picture moves. So your statistical probability on the short term goes down. And here's Forum Energy Metals. Again, I drew it through here. Nice support. We broke up the top side of this guy, and we're kind of just meandering sideways at the moment. Here's Forceless Metals, another meanderer going sideways, bearish engulfing, pulling back in a pullback. And sometimes all you get is a sideways movement on a pullback. That's all it can muster. Or, we got a bullish engulfing here as well. So this could move higher. Sky Harbor's starting to flirt with its line, and it's breaking out to the downside. We could see some downside movement here. Pretty low volume, though. Very low volume. So it very well could be forced back up. And Standard Uranium, we've got the break of the uptrend line here. This could be a false breakout where we turn and move higher, and it could rocket higher. It's difficult to tell. Sometimes they like these false little breakouts. They get everybody to sell their shares. They load up on it, and then they reverse the stock very hard. Sometimes they do that. Baseload, and they being professional investors, institutional investors. Baseload energy, we broke out of it. We're still kind of back testing here. They're trying to scare people out. And then centrist energy, again, we broke out. Sometimes they like to retest or turn over, and then we move on higher. UEXCF, another company that I own and like, kind of moving on up. Big sell-off here. Nice big reversal wick on the bottom here. Maybe it's start trying to find some support down here, some buyers. So this doesn't look too bad. And then Laramide, we did break its uptrend line to the downside. We got a nice good wick on the bottom here, which means we may move on up. Momentum's to the upside for this day. And again, sometimes they do a false breakout, try to get some people to sell. They've got some stop losses down here or something, and then they try reversing it. And I think it looks all right. If you're an investor, it's difficult. I can't give you guys advice. And remember, and I'm going to answer this probably in a subscriber question, on the shorter term stuff is a lot more hard to predict than the medium to long term things. The long term charts are very easy to, it's like, it's going to go up, but you don't know what the short term movements are going to be. Day to day, a piece of news could move this 20, 30%. What I like to do is I take the big picture view, I get my valuations right, I get the big technical picture right. Then if the big technical picture is not broken, I just hold on. The short-term stuff that we're looking at day to day like this is not statistically as the probability of being right on the short term is much, much lower than it is on a big term picture. Because the big long term, when you look at these big like a decade plus long picture, that paints a picture that is basically factoring in all of the fundamentals and the buyers and sellers in aggregate over a long period of time, how they're interacting. The short-term movements, your probability of success drops dramatically. So let's just say the big picture, the success rate, and I'm going to make these up. I don't know the exact numbers. Let's say it's 90 or 95% successful or 85% successful from a big picture view. And then when you zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, you would think they're the same, but the probabilities go way down because anything could affect the short-term movement. Anything. But on a long-term perspective, COVID didn't even knock the structural move off of the decade-long move of uranium or any of these other ones in copper and oil. It did a short-term blip and then it came back. So the news, COVID, some people would say that wasn't necessarily predictable. Some could say it was predictable. But in the very, very short term, a piece of news during the day could ruin ruin a trend line or break out to the downside, which would also be a false breakout, and then move right back on up. So it becomes a lot less predictable the shorter time frame you are, and that's why short-term traders just lose money, copious amounts of money. They're just bleeding out of their accounts, and that's why when I'm such a over time my investment horizon has grown for longer and longer time periods because your statistical probability of success goes through the roof to the upside. And I'll do another clip on that, answering some of your guys' questions. If you guys like this content, give me a thumbs up. Thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.